our next presenter. For everyone who's stuck around, I know you guys are very excited. So I will let Seth do the introduction to Andrew Finkelstein. Andrew, thank you so much for being on. Seth, do the intro and let him infect us with wisdom, not coronavirus.
Absolutely. Andrew's a friend and mentor. He runs one of the most amazing law firms I've ever visited. He has a technology department larger than most law firms, and not just a law firm, but multiple law firms. He's created a 4-law firm empire, and it is a sight to behold. He's also extremely generous with mentoring young lawyers and working with them. And Andrew, would love to, we heard from you before about your perspective as a bank executive. The question, everybody on their mind, how are you adjusting with the machine you've built to the COVID environment?
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate the time. I actually wasn't too sure what you wanted me to speak on. So yesterday, Seth and I had a quick call, and we agreed that I'd talk about the mindset of an owner during this new, everybody calls it the new normal, but really it's just working from home. My office, we've been fortunate enough to have people working from home for over 25 years. I'm not going to go into all the technology. The biggest challenge for me is that I'm limited to 15 minutes, and I will do my best to stay within that. But I wanted to kind of communicate broadly as to how I've approached the new normal. And it's actually drawing upon a lot of what Gary, Lisa, and I'm glad I watched Billy, everybody talk about. But I think nobody was intentionally missed it, but I'm going to communicate what I think is the core difference of what we need to do as a new owner. And that is to really communicate trust in our staff. When people are working from home, and we've been doing it, as I shared, for 25 years, so it's new to a lot of people. And I suspect that there's a tremendous fear as a business owner that, are they being productive? Are they being effective? Are they doing their work? And I would suggest that the best way to think about that is the presumption of positive thought, that they actually are. Presume positive intent and presume that somebody is in fact giving their all to your organization. But I'm not suggesting you just act blindly and bliss is terrific. You have to communicate that and spend time communicating to your staff that this situation that we are now in is not just an employer-employee relationship. It's a trusting relationship. It's a trusting relationship where I speak very individually when I'm talking to anybody in my firm, where I trust that you will do the right thing. You'll do the right thing for our clients. You'll do the right thing for our community, and you'll do the right thing for the colleagues that we all work together with. Because if we all do the right thing, and I go on to further define what the right thing is, then we have the confidence in one another that that activity is promoting the best interest of our client and our firm. So a lot of people, in my experience, is they don't talk about trust, and they don't talk about that trusting relationship that it requires somebody with integrity, somebody with strength, somebody with the ability to come forward and sometimes give bad news and acknowledge that maybe a mistake was made. We don't want to be in a situation where people can work from home and believe that if an error is made, that they can just shove it under the rug. And rather, we want them to come forward, and they can only come forward if they trust that you will deal with it in a professional, dignified way. Which kind of leads me to that next element, which is emotions. It's an emotional time, a lot of stress and anxiety in our economy, and I don't need to repeat everything that everybody sees in the news, but that contagiousness can start with you at the top. And are you going to really manage with a steady, even keeled way, or you have to recognize that your emotions and what you deliver emotionally is transitioned throughout your organization, even if it's digitally and through video. So Gary immediately, I shouldn't say immediately, at one point in time apologized for his enthusiasm. Well, frankly, that's all great. I know Gary. Gary is awesome. I know him from Parker Wakeman, but Gary needs to recognize, and I'm only calling you out, Gary, because you were on this, but Gary needs to recognize in managing his team what his emotional communication does to his team. And particularly in a work at home environment. Why? Because we're not in a situation where you can have a communication and then 3 minutes later walk down the hall and kind of pass and take the litmus test on how that person is doing. So you have to be very cognizant of what you are communicating, not just substantively, but also emotionally. It's really important to have a lot of self-awareness of what you are communicating. And that'll transition into what Lisa was talking about. That communication isn't as much affirmatively what you're communicating, but also listening. I agree 1,000% with her. It's when we are managing remotely, we need to have acute listening skills. We need to really be hearing what is it that is truly being said. Is it that they feel overwhelmed, not supported? The mental health component is significantly important. So managing from a distance creates significant challenges that if we're aware of it, we can definitely handle it. So I think what is important, what managing from home is significant. What we also must do is make sure our compensation system matches what we value, because it's not. I've learned just a little bit about my firm. My firm, we're in our 62nd year. We have 18 offices, about 90 lawyers, 300 in support. The average amount of time people are with me is in excess of 20 years. Somebody having a 20-year, I've got people here in my firm for 46 years, 44 years, 30-year anniversary is nothing. So I've given a lot of thought as to why is that? And it's not, I mean, we compensate well, but it's not the money that drove people to stay. It's the culture of the organization and what we really stood for. And I would encourage you to really think about what is your culture, because if you don't work on your culture remotely, then it will work you over and you won't know what it is. So you need to really define what your culture is. And our culture, I alluded to it earlier, but we have a clearly defined culture of caring, commitment, and concern for our clients, our colleagues, and our community. Everything we do must fall within that. And just because we say that is not really important unless we back up those words with actions. So how is it that we back up with actions? And I love what Billy does is we do surveys. We send clear surveys out to our clients with greater frequency immediately after we sign up the case, and we find out how were you treated with our intake department, our first call, any communication during that first window of time, and we clearly define who that person was that did that communication, and we ask specifically, were you treated with caring, compassion, and concern? Now, we then use that information to drive our reviews from an employee standpoint and raises. And if people aren't delivering on the key promise indicators, to embrace Billy's presentation. And that's really our key promise indicator, our promise to our client that we will treat them in a particular way. Because the reality is, when you deliver a service that's an intangible, that's not measurable in any particular way, how is it truly measured? By the impression that we create. And if the impression that we create is one of care and compassion and concern for me and my family, for my community, then people will have a good feeling with respect to the delivery of the services that we provide. That doesn't mean we win every case, but as long as they know that we've done it with our best intention in mind, then we have positive returns. Now, it's a large firm, but the vast majority of our business comes from existing and prior clients. I do a lot of advertising, I do a lot of promotions, but without a doubt, the number one lead generator is our existing client base. So and I have a YouTube channel, I've got everything that we're talking about, I do, and I totally promote and think it is the way. And I agree with putting videos out there. I've got a whole menu of videos explaining. I'll give you some other topics that I would encourage you to do. These are the topics I've done. What's a fair offer? What is it that my lawyer actually does? I tell you exactly what I communicated in the video, and it was this. Lawyers have a very simple job. That job, as long as the clients understand what it is and you communicate it well, you'll do great. And what is the job? I've done a lot of focus groups on this. The job from a client's perspective, and this is the reality of it, is who owns the case, you or your client? A lot of lawyers think, oh, it's my case. It's not my case. I'm only the vehicle to allow them to attain the objective that they want. It's the client's case. And when it's the client's case, so what is your job as the attorney? Forget about all that legal bullshit. The reality from the client's perspective is very simple. Put the client in a position to make an educated and informed decision. And I communicate to clients all the time. That's what our role is, and that's what our job is. I am not going to make the decision for you, but I'm going to put you in the position to make a smart, well thought out, educated decision. Now, there's only one way that can happen. If I spend the time with you to educate you, I'm never going to come in and say, this is what you should do, settle your case. This is what you should do, move forward. I'm going to say X, Y, and Z. This is where the situation is. And these are your two options. Now, you can then say, now a smart person may take option A, and somebody who wants to take a greater risk can take option B. It's up to you. And then they'll always say, what would you do? A lot of times, what would you do? I go, well, that's really fair because I'm not in your shoes. Is there anything I said to you that prevents you from making an educated and informed decision? Because I'm not going to make the decision for you. You find a lot of clients who they want to punt. They think you're smarter. You know better. Well, the reality is, if you've done your job the right way, they're smarter than you. All you can do as an attorney, and what our job really is as an attorney, is to predict the future. That's one thing, we've been there before. We know what's going to happen if there's going to be a trial. We know what the judge is like. We know what the paper is going to be like. We know what witness testimony, how it goes in. We can't predict exactly what a jury is going to do if it's a jury trial, but we can predict the future as to the upside and the downside. That's all we have to do. And as long as we communicate that well, educate the client that that's what our core job is, what really happens. You've developed a trusting relationship, one where they trust you to do the right thing. And what is the right thing? Solely to educate and then inform. And that trusting relationship then transfers to not just that individual relationship, but the entire impression as to how they feel about you and your firm. And then that delivers new business for you.